Matthias is an idiot sage who is reborn in the future, where everyone thinks he is weaker than your pull-out game. However, when he joins a magical academy and reveals he's an overpowered Giga Chad, he starts collecting clumsy baddies to form a waifu party who will do anything he asks so he can clap his enemies. Everything started in the past, when Gaius finished eradicating all the demons in the world. But he decided to reincarnate himself to acquire a magical crest that would enhance his powers. Thousands of years later, he shows up as a normal guy named Matthias, hoping to get admitted into a popular school in the royal capital. On the way, he puts his newly acquired crest to the test and uses it to take down a monster that tries to attack his chariot. When he arrives at the capital, he stumbles into a swordsmith's shop where he sees a chick named Alma begging for a magic sword. Apparently, it's for her friend, and she'll need it for the entrance exam coming up the next day. Matthias listens and offers to enchant her sword since the swordsmith says he can't do it. So while he waits for the swordsmith to cook up a fresh blade, Alma's friend named Luri walks in, and he falls for her on the spot. Luri feels some kind of chemistry between them and makes sure to blurt out that she's single and that her V-card hasn't been swiped yet.
Yeah, boy.
But before things can get interesting, Matthias gets the newly forged sword and proceeds to enchant it. When he's done, everyone's impressed by how sharp and powerful it is, and even the swordsmith offers him a job, but he declines. The next day, during the Academy's selection test, Luri is paired up with some dude in a sparring match, and she easily defeats him with her enchanted sword. Seeing that Matthias is the one behind Luri's enchanted sword, a knight named Guile challenges him to a match. He promises straight admission into the Academy if he's good enough. As the duel begins, Guile underestimates Matthias and ends up falling victim to a nasty attack, forcing him to surrender. Later on, the next phase of the test begins. Each candidate is tasked with shooting at certain targets. When it's Luri's turn, she chants a spell and shoots fireballs at her target. Matthias finds this weird since that casting method takes too much magic and leaves the caster wide open mid-chant. So when it's his turn, he uses a wordless spell and destroys all 5 targets at once. Everyone's shocked, mostly because he has the crest of failure, but he still gets admitted to the academy. On his first day, the headmaster, Edward, addresses the students, and he calls for Matthias to meet him in his office before leaving the stage. Matthias gets nervous, thinking he's about to get expelled, but he's shocked when Edward asks for his help. Edward explains that the students can't use wordless spells, and he's been hoping to bring back the lost technique, but he's forced to follow the First Academy's curriculum, which rejects wordless casting. The only way to get it accepted is to prove its value in the next inter-school competition. So Matthias is tasked with tutoring all the students on how to cast wordless spells, and he gets started immediately. After a whole month of intense training, both academies gather for the competition. Just outside the arena, Luri and Alma inform Matthias that some of his opponents might be on the same power level as demons. So while he walks out to face them, he suspects that some demons must have survived into this era, and then realizes that his opponents are demons in disguise. As the battle begins, Matthias quickly knocks down the first 2 demons, and the third one, called Devilis, carelessly resorts to using wordless spells to fight. The audience notices he's been pretending to chant his spells, and when Matthias stabs him, he's forced to reveal his true form. Seeing that he's a demon, Edward immediately orders the students to evacuate, while Matthias makes sure that Devilis doesn't escape. He catches him mid-flight and unalives him, then realizes the academy has been infiltrated by the same demons he thought he wiped out in his previous life. After the demons' corpses are confiscated, Luri runs up and gives Matthias a big hug, glad that he's okay. Apparently, facing off against 3 demons at once in this world is a big deal, so Matthias is summoned before the king alongside Edward. The king wastes no time applauding his feats and offers to reward him greatly, but Matthias insists on not receiving anything that would make him feel too comfortable. Instead, he requests the rights to all resources found in the kingdom's dungeons, and the king grants it to him. After that, the king asks for his take on all the demons who had been hiding in disguise within the kingdom, since most of them have now vanished. One was even a captain of the Mage Order, and the king reveals that these infiltrators began to appear several hundred years ago. He believes the infiltration has been going on for centuries, and Matthias shares the same thought. He reasons that the few surviving demons from centuries ago must have infiltrated human society, spread outdated magical knowledge, and caused human power to wane over time. With this in mind, he tells the king that even though the demons had escaped the kingdom, everyone is still in danger. This is because the demons intend to muster their forces and launch a direct assault. He estimates that it will take them about 3 months to prepare for the attack, and the king realizes that's a very short time to be ready. However, Matthias offers a solution, suggesting that the kingdom can be protected if it's covered by a barrier before the demons strike. He intends to use a divine-class artifact to project a permanent barrier, and he's confident it can be completed in a month if all the students work together. The king immediately approves of the suggestion and decides to appoint Matthias as the leader of the kingdom's defense against the demons. Later on, Matthias is ushered into a treasure room where he starts searching for magistones and metals that could help his cause. In the process, he stumbles across an old sword and realizes it's the same one he created in his previous life, so he decides to take it. He grabs a few other artifacts and calls it a day. The following day, he notices that the students are beginning to get the hang of wordless casting, and he hopes to rely on them long enough for him to grow stronger. Luri and Alma show up, shocked to hear that he plans to protect the kingdom with a barrier. But they're even more shocked when Matthias mentions that he'll be heading into the dungeon to source materials. When it dawns on him that he'll need a party, he asks the girls to join his. The girls are skeptical, thinking they'll just hold him back, but Matthias reassures them that he's cool with them as they are. He demonstrates by shooting an arrow infused with mana, and when Luri sees that it's possible to cast enchantments, she makes up her mind to join his party. Upon reaching the dungeon beneath the academy, Matthias fetches a small monster to practice on with Alma. Following his instructions, she's able to accurately shoot a mana-infused arrow at her target, which impresses Luri. For the next exercise, Matthias tells her to feel the connection between herself and her arrow, so when she fires a second time, the arrow locks onto its target like a missile and takes it out. With that, Alma wanders off to shoot more monsters and gather magistones for Matthias. In her absence, Luri gets a bit clingy with Matthias, insisting he teach her how to cast enchantments. So Matthias takes her to a wall and shatters it with his magic. He then picks up a piece and reveals his intention to refine it and extract metals for weapons, though it seems impossible to Luri. When she follows Matthias' instructions, she's excited to find that she can extract pure clusters of iron and mithril from the rock sample. Meanwhile, Alma collects a bunch of magistones by defeating monsters with the new technique she learned from Matthias. As she returns to rejoin the group, she sees that Luri has already mastered weapon enchantments, and she's happy for her. Now Matthias wants to test what they've learned so far, so they journey deeper into the dungeon, where the girls work together to take out monsters. As they progress, Matthias' pendant consolidates the magical power from the defeated monsters, and the party's experience points increase. At some point, a monster dog shows up. The girls are scared, since they'd never faced a creature that big, but they still summon the courage to fight it together and manage to defeat it. Matthias praises their effort after the beast is down, then suggests they create a barrier camp using a magistone so they can rest. Once he's done, he proceeds to the lower floors, hoping to find the adamantite ore he needs for the kingdom's barrier. Before he leaves, the girls express concern since going alone basically means death, but he goes anyway and slays the monsters in his path. While securing a small amount of adamantite, he senses the presence of a powerful monster beneath him and jumps in to confront it immediately. The monster is a giant arc serpent with corroding venom and serious anger issues. As the battle begins, Matthias allows himself to be swallowed by the serpent, and inside its mouth, he casts a wordless spell that explodes its throat. After the blast, he lands a devastating strike, then follows it up with a splitting enchanted blow that severs its head. The resulting shockwave causes a massive vibration through the dungeon. The girls begin to feel worried, and even some demons lurking nearby sense the burst of magical energy. Back in the dungeon, Matthias returns to the girls, and they're shocked to see him casually drop the arc serpent's head from his virtual inventory. Matthias' party goes to a guild to sell the goods they picked up in the dungeon, and they attract a lot of attention just by being students of the Second Academy. The guild receptionist sees the crest of failure on Matthias' hand and assumes he's just their acting porter, but she's shocked when Matthias uses a storage spell to reveal the head of an arc serpent. He tells her he'd like to sell it, but she freaks out upon seeing the terrifying carcass. Matthias then takes it outside and casually shows them a huge magistone for sale like it's no big deal. Analyzing the stone, the receptionist says it could qualify as a national treasure. Matthias then informs her that he got it by defeating the arc serpent, and it's still not big enough to be used for the barrier. After estimating the value of the rare items, the receptionist tells him she's not sure the guild can even afford them. Shortly after, the party makes a deal for 750 gold coins. Matthias suggests they split the profit into 3 equal parts, but the girls remind him that it should be shared based on their contributions in the previous battle. Suddenly, Matthias senses something is wrong and tells the girls they'll have to return to the academy immediately. The girls then notice a magical aura nearby and realize that 2 demons are heading for the Second Academy, Ashril and Deshril. The aforementioned demons arrive at the academy with the goal of testing Matthias' strength after his victory over Devilis. Matthias gauges the demon's power and assigns the girls to deal with the weaker one. The girls hesitate, knowing how strong demons can be, but Matthias encourages them and they accept the mission. Meanwhile, Ashril plans to cause havoc with a large spell from above, but before he can finish speaking, Matthias appears in front of him and attacks Deshril. However, his sword doesn't deal any damage, so he concludes that enhancements will be needed to defeat it. Ashril then fires a direct hit at Matthias, who evades the flames. On the second attempt, Matthias takes control of Ashril's spell with some magic spheres and uses the same fire to burn him, but the demon snaps out of it. The demons then charge at Matthias, but Luri fires 2 spell-imbued enchanted arrows at Deshril to disrupt his magic and slow him down. After noticing other humans interfering, Asriel tells Deshril to take care of the girls while he fights Matyas one-on-one. Asriel uses a large-scale spell that would destroy Matyas' control spell, but before he can activate it, Matyas casts a spell into the weak point of Asriel's magic circle, canceling the attack. He strikes Asriel, and they engage in a sword battle, which Matyas effortlessly wins. Humiliated, Asriel tries to escape using a flight spell, but Matyas proves that he has complete control over his casting. As Matyas charges in to finish him off, Asriel attempts a surprise point-blank spell, believing it'll finish Matyas, but he miraculously evades it. Their battle continues, and Matyas uses an occlusion orb to knock Asriel out. The demon gets back up and tries to cast a special spell to trade his life for a horde of monsters, but Matyas seals it and defeats him. Luri and Alma, on the other hand, buy time with their tactics against Deshril. As they disrupt his magic flow, Matyas joins in to end the fight using a version of the Lead of Death spell. The spell resembles the original, but due to Matyas' current level, it's not quite the real thing. Deshril tries to run away, but Matyas instructs Alma to fire an arrow to disrupt him. He then amplifies the attack so much that it tears off Deshril's wings. The fight draws public attention, and since Matyas hates the spotlight, he grabs the girls and uses a movement spell to take them away. Later, Edward escorts Matyas' party to the palace, where the king commends them for their efforts. He asks Matyas to make a request, and Matyas asks for more dungeons, a wish the king gladly grants. He then turns to Luri and Alma and asks for their requests, and both girls ask for money, with Alma remarking that you can never have too much of it. Suddenly, Matyas notices they're being watched by a demon who isn't physically present. He calls it out, but it doesn't respond, so he electrocutes it with a spell. The demon screams, and the king recognizes the voice, believing it belongs to Erhard, the former captain of the Mage Order. Matyas informs the king that Erhard was listening and using a fixed magical interface. Though Matyas damaged it, he wasn't able to finish him off. After confirming Erhard's location, the king reveals that Erhard and others now live in a faraway village that was once destroyed by demons. Matyas decides that's where he's headed, but the village is so far that even his teleportation spell won't reach it. His party heads out, and along the way, they recall the headmaster ordering the students to gather materials needed for the barrier. Edward's goal is to have those materials ready before Matyas and his party return. Matyas then takes the girls to the mountains to negotiate with Eris, the legendary darkness dragon. Upon arriving, he tells the girls to wait while he goes in to speak with her. Back then, Eris was among the dragons he fought, but she surrendered early, and he spared her. Currently, Eris doesn't recognize Matyas, so she attacks him, but he stops her with a disruption spell. He then speaks to her in dragon language and reveals that he is the reincarnation of the legendary mage Gaius. Immediately, Eris apologizes, saying it was a big misunderstanding, and Matyas tells her that he needs her help transporting them to a faraway place to deal with some demons. The dragon shows him her damaged wings, and he fixes them for her. He also asks her to keep his reincarnation a secret, which she agrees to. After that, Matyas calls the girls over to meet Eris, and they begin their journey into the sky. Despite being in a hurry, Matyas tells Eris to fly only as fast as normal humans can endure. After a bit of back and forth, she agrees and soars toward the demon's hideout. Mid-flight, Matyas notices a demon standing outside a watchtower and, without slowing down, finishes him off at full speed before the demon can even react. This shocks Alma and Luri, who start questioning whether Matyas is even human, while Eris quietly thanks her stars that she's on his side. Outside the watchtower, Matyas identifies it as a strategic location for the demons. When he gets inside the building, he immediately senses something is wrong. Using ancient knowledge long forgotten by modern mages, he warns Luri and Alma via telepathic communication that high-level concealment magic is likely in use. He instructs them to search for areas where the flow of magic is abnormally still or absent, an ancient method of detecting invisible foes. Alma identifies one such spot in the upper corner of the tower room. Acting on Matyas' signal, Luri fires an enchanted arrow enhanced with thread chant magic, which disrupts the concealment spell and reveals the first demon, Elhart, a brainless humanoid demon who had been observing them while invisible. Elhart is stunned. Realizing that his stealth magic has been completely unraveled, baffled, he accuses Matyas of being a fake, claiming the real Matyas shouldn't even be anywhere near this location. As he prepares for battle, Alma and Luri launch a coordinated assault, firing arrows at his back. The strikes interfere with Elhart's internal magic circulation, destabilizing his mana flow. Realizing he's cooked, Elhart resorts to a high-risk transformation spell known as Disfortune, a technique that trades a portion of his life force for raw power. Matyas immediately recognizes the transformation and notes that while it grants brute strength, it drastically lowers magical stability, essentially turning Elhart into a ticking magical bomb with biceps. With his strength boosted, Elhart charges toward Luri and Alma, believing he can finish them in one blow. However, what he attacks are illusions crafted by Matyas using magitoxins, a trap designed to lure him into a false sense of advantage. As Elhart stumbles into the illusion, Lurie fires one final arrow, striking him directly in the forehead. Elhart collapses at the spot, and Matyas confirms his identity as the first of the two demons targeted for extermination. Matyas then instructs his team to stay behind with Eris while he confronts the second demon alone. He ventures deeper into the ruins and purposefully shatters several magistones, releasing a sudden burst of magical noise into the atmosphere. This disturbance successfully draws out the second demon, Ares, a rare and dangerous mist-form demon. Ares materializes slowly, appearing as a humanoid figure composed entirely of magical vapor. His body is impervious to physical attacks. The fight between Matyas and Ares begins as Matyas launches several magical attacks, but they prove ineffective against Ares' intangible mist body. Ares retaliates with high-speed vapor tendrils, and during a rapid exchange, he manages to sever Matyas' left arm. Despite the serious injury, Matyas remains calm. He quickly uses ancient healing magic to regenerate his lost arm. With his body restored, he initiates a mana overload trap, drawing ambient magical energy from the surrounding environment and force-feeding it directly into Ares' form. Ares, unable to stabilize the influx, begins to destabilize. His gaseous form swells as he absorbs more magic than he can contain. Within seconds, the pressure becomes too much, and his body explodes violently. The explosion reveals a massive crystal structure buried beneath the ruins. Upon closer inspection, Matyas identifies it as a dragon vein pillar, a long-lost artifact used to tap directly into the Earth's ley lines for large-scale spellcasting. Reading the ancient runes inscribed on the crystal, Matyas determines that the demons had used the pillar to activate a mass summoning spell, intended to summon 5,000 dungeon-class monsters directly into the royal capital. The explosion from Ares' defeat interfered with the ritual, shifting the monster spawn point by about 10 kilometers. While the capital is safe for now, the threat is far from over. Matyas decides not to inform the Academy immediately. Instead, he plans to prepare in secret. After regrouping with his team, Matyas and his companions return to the Second Academy using Eris' dragon form. Upon arrival, Matyas convinces Eris to transform into her human form, marking her first step toward blending in with human society. The next day, Matyas heads straight to Headmaster Edwart's office. There, he presents the remains of both Elhart and Ares, explaining the mission's outcome. Then he proposes enrolling Eris as a student at the Second Academy. Given that she has taken human form and knows his secret, it would be beneficial to keep her close. Edward hesitates, but Matyas requests a special admission test for Eris, offering to supervise her magic personally. Edward agrees, setting a benchmark score range of 47 to 50 points, assuming Iris can pass the basic academic and practical requirements. Before the test, Matyas applies a magical illusion to Iris' hand, mimicking the second crest so she can blend in with the other students. The next morning, Iris begins the entrance exam with the written test as the first challenge. Rather than answer the questions, she decides to sniff the ink and ends up spilling everything on her answer booklet. Next is the physical combat trial, held in the Academy's outdoor training yard. Iris is paired with Guile for a mock duel using swords. As the match begins, Iris fumbles and mistakenly drops her sword on the ground. So when Guile charges at her to secure a win, she stops his sword with her hands, picks up hers, and sends him crashing into the side of the building. Everyone is shocked after seeing this, leaving Edgered questioning whether she's a normal human or not. The final test is the magic casting evaluation, and Matyas makes sure to supervise this segment directly. He asks Iris to cast a basic offensive spell. Though she complies, she fails to regulate her power. The resulting spell unleashes an enormous burst of mana that completely obliterates the Academy's magical training field, leveling the entire area. After reviewing the full exam, Headmaster Edward approves Iris' enrollment, while Matyas is stuck with cleaning up her mess and taking care of the damage. Matyas and his companions continue their preparations to build a massive barrier that will protect the kingdom from an impending demonic threat. Working in tandem with the Second Royal Academy, the group now needs to obtain a powerful magical catalyst known as a large magistone. However, the strongest and most stable type, the Crest of Glory, is currently monopolized by the First Royal Academy. Recognizing the political and logistical complications this presents, Matyas suggests seeking cooperation from the First Academy. Despite its rivalry with the Second, Headmaster Edward of the Second Academy, understanding the urgency, calls for a negotiation. Soon after, Headmaster Fecus of the First Royal Academy arrives with several top students. Arrogant and dismissive, Fecus mocks the Second Academy for being classless, refusing to acknowledge their progress with wordless magic. Still clinging to chant-based casting, he scoffs at Matyas and his companions. In response to Fecus' refusal, Matyas suggests a compromise, a competitive exhibition between the two academies. If the Second Academy wins, the first must assist with the Magistone acquisition and share their stock. Phacus, overconfident in his students' abilities and underestimating the Second Academy, agrees, but on the condition that Matthias, who he calls a beast, is not allowed to participate. Edward and Matthias accept the terms, confident in the rest of the Second Academy students who have recently adopted Matthias's training methods. The next day, the competition kicks off with the First Academy using a full squad of chant-based mages. The second sends just 5 students, all trained by Matthias in wordless casting. As the First Academy students begin chanting, they're immediately overwhelmed by swift, silent spells, and Phacus almost sets his pants. Stunned by the rapid defeat, Phacus accuses the Second Academy of cheating and calls the students beasts. He then points at Iris, insisting that she prove otherwise, only for her to bend the sword she's been given when she tries to unsheath it. This shocks Phacus to his bones, and he doesn't hold back as he calls Iris a beast. Edward seizes the moment to call out Phacus on an issue. The First Academy has continued teaching chant-based magic, even after the king issued a royal decree mandating all academies transition to wordless casting. Phacus arrogantly dismisses the order, claiming the First Academy's long-standing traditions outweigh royal commands. Before the confrontation escalates, the king arrives in person and rebukes Phacus for disobeying his decree and refusing to cooperate with the Second Academy. As punishment, the king strips Phacus of his position and has him taken into custody. With Phacus removed, the First Academy students are reassigned to work under the Second Academy's supervision and are ordered to adopt wordless casting. Following the political resolution, Matthias refocuses on the practical task of constructing the protective barrier. He takes Luri, Alma, and Iris into the deeper levels of the Academy's underground dungeon to obtain a 60-centimeter Magistone, a rare item necessary for stabilizing the magical barrier. Matthias devises a strategy to summon a guardian monster, using Iris's overwhelming magical output to locate or create the proper Magistone. However, unfamiliar with the delicate control required, Iris, being Iris, pours far too much magic into the summoning ritual, and the result is catastrophic. Instead of a manageable monster, a massive dragon-like creature materializes. Wild and powerful, it far exceeds what the team had expected or prepared for. Matthias quickly takes command, instructing Alma to use precise enchanted arrows to target the creature's joints, while Luri distracts it from the opposite side. Their efforts, however, are only marginally effective as the dragon's immense size and magical resilience absorb most of the damage. During a critical moment, as the dragon prepares to crush Luri and Alma with a massive claw strike, Iris steps in and unleashes a tremendous punch that sends the beast flying across the chamber. Matthias then allows the dragon to prepare a breath attack capable of decimating the entire team, so he uses already mounted Magistones to deflect the blast. While Iris runs away to avoid getting caught in the blast, she slips and falls into a hole. Seeing that it's too late for her to escape, coupled with the fact that she can't handle such a blast, Matthias forms a magical barrier around her to protect her. Finally, the counterblast destabilizes the dragon's internal magic, causing it to explode in a wave of magical energy. As a result, it leaves behind a perfectly formed 60-centimeter Magistone, intact and suitable for the barrier project. With the battle concluded, Matthias formally invites Iris to become an official member of his team. Recognizing both her dedication and power, Iris, pleased to be accepted as more than just a weapon, happily agrees. Upon returning to the academy, Matthias immediately begins training Iris to improve her physical control and combat finesse. As a former dragon, her ability to balance, walk normally, and regulate strength in human form is still underdeveloped. The first training drill is designed to teach restraint, where Alma fires arrows at a target placed on top of Iris's head, and Iris must dodge them without damaging the shell or making large movements. At the same time, Matthias supervises Luri, who is forging new weapons for the party. She crafts a multi-layered sword capable of holding multiple enchantments for Matthias, a finely tuned blade for herself, a long-range precision bow for Alma, and a reinforced spear specialized designed for Iris. Once the weapons are completed, the team gathers at the training field to test their performance. Luri's sword holds up to high-speed magical slashes. Alma's arrows fly faster and more accurately, while Iris's new spear doesn't break, even when swung with full force. Matthias analyzes the results carefully and confirms that the party's battle readiness has improved significantly. Later, Matthias reflects on their progress, and he tells the girls to come at him with everything they've got. After their spring session, he thinks about everything he has done for the kingdom so far and mentions that when he is done with the barrier and chasing the demons away, he'll have no reason to stay back in the school. Luri hears as he says he plans to leave, and she's shocked. Meanwhile, a sinister demon lurks in the shadows, waiting patiently for the right time to strike all members of the human race. Headmaster Edward stands before the assembled students in the courtyard and announces that Matthias is undertaking a monumental task of creating a powerful protective barrier around the royal capital. This magical shield is not yet complete, and the students must now defend the city from incoming demon attacks until the barrier reaches full activation. He informs them that enemies are approaching, and they must intercept any threats that breach the city's perimeter. Beneath the academy, in a vast underground chamber, Matias and Iris manage the logistics of the barrier's construction. Iris, now a fully enrolled student and still capable of transforming into a dragon, delivers 40 boxes of mithril and magistones, essential magical materials for fueling the enchantment. Matias carefully integrates the materials into the barrier's framework while managing the flow of mana through the casting circle. Above ground, Luri and Alma take defensive positions on the city's outer boundary. Matias contacts them via telepathic link and informs them that the demons are using an ancient technique known as Magirode, a dangerous summoning route that bypasses physical space. To prepare, Matias gives Alma a set of enchanted arrows and urges both girls to use silent, wordless casting, which allows for faster and harder to detect magic use. Matias also provides complex spell circles for enhancing the arrows, and Luri takes the lead, manually inscribing these circles onto the shafts with incredible precision, an ability few mages possess in the current era. Moments later, the first demon appears, and Alma reacts quickly. She draws one of the enchanted arrows, aims, and releases. The arrow, boosted by Luri's spell circle, strikes the demon dead center and destroys it instantly. The moment is short-lived because a second demon shows up, but this time the attack doesn't land effectively. As the demon closes in, Luri charges forward with her blade as she lands a decisive blow, cleaving the demon down. The two girls exchange a nod as this marks their first fully synchronized battle, and their teamwork has noticeably improved. Back in the barrier chamber, Matias senses a surge of dark mana. The energy signature is stronger than he anticipated, indicating the demons are using a higher level ritual. This particular spell requires a sacrifice to activate, which explains the increasing power and frequency of the attacks. Though the situation is escalating, Matias calculates that the barrier will hold if the defense line remains strong. He sends a warning to Alma and Luri to prepare for stronger demons, then resumes his work. Just then, Iris returns carrying the last load of supplies. Her timing is perfect. On the surface, Edward joins Alma and Luri. He informs them that Matias has provided a significant backup reserve of magistones, ensuring that the students will not run out of magical power during the battle. Luri resumes enchanting arrows while the other students construct support wards and reinforcing spells across the outer perimeter. Suddenly, the air distorts, and a more advanced demon named Belias emerges. Unlike the others, Belias begins chanting an advanced fire-based incantation that releases a powerful offensive spell. The students act quickly, casting inhibitor magic to shield themselves. The barrier groans but holds. Alma fires an arrow at Belias, but the demon catches it midair. Luri, observing from behind, quickly casts a mana enhancement spell on the arrow still gripped by Belias. The arrow, now glowing with a powerful enchantment, becomes unstable. Alma shouts a brief command and redirects the arrow mid-flight. It pierces Belias' chest, shattering his magical core, causing the demon to collapse and disintegrate. The remaining students follow up with a barrage of fire spells to finish off lingering threats. Another weight is held off, but their relief is short-lived. A few moments later, an even stronger demon emerges, casting a high-level explosive spell that shatters part of the protective outer layer of the barrier. The defensive line buckles. It seems all hope is lost until Matias appears and tells the enemy that he's been creating demon wings, and they're the right fit. In a matter of seconds, he neutralizes the invading demons with a rapid combination of sword strikes and compressed mana bursts. His presence steadies the group instantly, and morale is restored. The students regroup while Matias races back below ground. Inside the barrier chamber, Matias gathers with Luri and Alma to insert the final magistone into the central node of the enchantment. With a pulse of light, the city-wide barrier completes activation, casting a luminous dome of magical energy over the capital, and the immediate threat is repelled. However, Matias warns the others that this is only the beginning. The presence of a dragon vein pillar, a massive underground magical conduit, suggests that the demons are using ancient infrastructure to accelerate their summoning operations. And now that their ritual has begun, more powerful monsters will follow. Right on cue, a new horde begins forming outside the barrier. But Matias has prepared for this and laid multiple magic traps in the area beyond the dome. With his help, the students unleash volleys of wordless magic, holding back the initial wave, but 3 giant monsters breach the line. The beasts are far more powerful than what the students are trained to handle. One of them is identified as a Void Eater, an ever-evolving creature that grows stronger by devouring other monsters. If left unchecked, it could potentially consume the entire kingdom. Matias immediately recognizes the danger and, without missing a beat, tosses Luri a casting circle mid-battle. Luri doesn't hesitate. She slaps the circle onto the creature, and the spell disrupts the Void Eater's evolution. This forces a grotesque mutation that turns its rapid growth into a weakness. Now vulnerable and off balance, the monster is finally within reach of being destroyed. Seizing the moment, Matias immobilizes the creature with a mana-restraining field and channels a series of complex spells, combining compressed mana bursts, a binding incantation, and a focused mana blade strike to weaken its defenses. Iris uses her immense dragon strength to slam the creature into the ground, while Alma follows up with a precise mana blast to a newly exposed weak point. Luri then delivers a final, mana-charged sword strike that pierces the Void Eater's core, causing it to implode and disintegrate. The next day, Matias meets with Headmaster Edward. He explains that the Dragon Vein pillars must be located and destroyed to prevent another large-scale summoning. That means leaving the academy. Edward understands the gravity of the mission and grants Matias a special scholarship status, allowing him to depart while remaining affiliated with the institution. Luri, Alma, and Iris are granted the same status, pledging to accompany Matias on this dangerous journey. Thereafter, the group departs the academy. Matias and his party leave the royal capital for Melkia, a dungeon city. They choose a shortcut through the forest of Chikira-Subia, known for its intelligent and powerful monsters. As they traverse the dense forest, a monkey-like monster, characterized by its agility and ferocity, ambushes them from the treetops, using his fourth crest, unaliving the monster in one strike. The brief battle showcases Matias' combat prowess and his ability to adapt his past life's knowledge as Gaius, the strongest sage, to his current body. Luri and Alma are awestruck, while Iris remarks casually on the monster's weakness compared to her standards. This encounter establishes the forest's danger and Matias' dominance. After defeating the monkey monster, Matias suggests cooking its meat to sustain the group, a practical approach from his past life. They set up a makeshift camp and forest clearing, with Matias using a purification spell to ensure the meat is safe. Luri, skilled in enchantment, assists by preparing the meat with basic tools, while Alma hesitates, uneasy about eating a monster. Iris, with her embarrassing appetite, eagerly joins in. Joking about the meat's potential flavor, Matias starts a fire with a minor fire spell, and Luri seasons the meat with herbs they carry. As they cook, Alma teases Luri about her cooking skills, while Matias shares a brief anecdote from his past life about surviving on monster meat during long journeys. Alma eventually tries the roasted meat, admitting it's surprisingly tasty, which prompts laughter and strengthens their bond. Post-meal, the group resumes their journey through the forest. Luri explains that Melkia, built around a dungeon filled with monsters and treasures, is a day's travel by normal routes. Iris, confident in her knowledge of the terrain, insists the forest shortcut will get them there by nightfall. Alma, still shaken from the monkey monster, warns about the forest's reputation for intelligent beasts, citing local adventurer tales. Matias, intrigued by the concept of a dungeon city, unknown in his past life, sees the journey as a chance to test his team and agrees to the shortcut. Fortunately, no monsters attack again, likely due to Matias' magical presence deterring them. Upon entering Melkia, the group immediately senses something amiss. A magical lamppost flickers dangerously before exploding nearby, a sign of the city's deteriorating magical infrastructure. A local merchant explains grimly that the new lord has outlawed magistones, the stable magical crystals that once powered the city, forcing reliance on unstable dragon veins beneath the earth. This has caused frequent accidents and driven many citizens away, leaving Melkia a shadow of its former self. Seeking deeper insight, Matias and his friends head to the Adventurers Guild to arrange permission to explore the dungeon below. However, bureaucracy delays their plans. Official approval must come from the Lord, whose presence is felt ominously across the city. Meanwhile, injured adventurers begin flooding the guild after failed dungeon expeditions, overwhelming the staff. Seeing the dire situation, Matias quickly steps in, establishing a trade station within the guild's chapel and healing the wounded with remarkable efficiency. Matias assesses the injured, using his past life's knowledge to implement a trade system, marking patients with wooden tablets to prioritize treatment. Just then, a lady barges into the guild, screaming that a large number of injured people have come in from a monster attack. She desperately asks if anyone knows healing spells, and Matias volunteers. She quickly leads them to a place where many people lie sprawled in agony from their wounds. Curious, Matias asks why there are so few healers. She explains that they once had plenty of staff, but the Lord drove them out, calling them a waste of money. Matias begins healing a man, but is interrupted by an authoritative figure demanding to know what he is doing. Matias ignores him and continues the treatment, healing the man in front of him. He then orders his party members and the people around him to follow his instructions. Starting with the worst cases, he tells the others to cast healing spells in descending order of urgency. Matias applies a specialized healing type, closing blood vessels to stanch bleeding, mending damaged organs, and then closing the wounds. He encourages everyone to work together to save lives, and by following his instructions, they succeed. The chief medic thanks Matias for his help. Matias then asks why the town's previous lord was replaced. The man explains that the former lord mysteriously passed away in his sleep. Moments later, Matias steps outside and reflects. He notes that the alteration of demons in this era is what caused cities to be built over dungeons. Because of this, Matthias suspects the previous lord was killed by demons and that the current ruler is a demon himself. When they return to their inn, Matthias writes a letter to the headmaster, asking him to forward it to the King of Ice. He first writes a decoy letter about homework, then hides the real message under a false bottom in the delivery box to protect it from inspection. Alma asks if it wouldn't be faster for him to deliver it personally. He agrees, but says he wants to see what will happen in the dungeon first. After finishing, he wishes them good night, telling them they'll check the dungeon the next day. Despite the hard work Matthias and Luri endured, they struggle to sleep since it's their first night out together, unlike Iris and Alma, who sleep soundly. The next morning, they reach the dungeon gate and discover that it's made of iron, a material monsters could easily break through. Iris opens the door, and as they enter, Matthias tells them to stay on guard. Later that day, they return to the guild and hand the receptionist the head of a powerful creature that Matthias claims Iris and the girls defeated. The receptionist freaks out, and upon realizing Matthias' party is strong, she requests to buy it from them, but warns that they won't be paid until the town lord confirms it. She writes her report, and Matthias uses projection magic to see that she classified him as the party's healer, while grouping the girls as the heavy hitters. Matthias then surprises her by revealing the other monsters his party took down and requests a reward. Elsewhere, the town lord learns of Matthias' party and sends scouts to watch them. Later, Matthias and the girls reward themselves with a feast from their monster rewards. On their way home after dinner, Matthias notices some men tailing them and quickly realizes it's the town lord's doing. Matthias takes a detour to the inn, and he speaks to the girls through telepathy, informing them that the lord's flunkies are tailing them. Matthias tells them to use a concealment spell and monitor the people tailing them to gauge their reactions. The girls do as he says, and the men almost wet their pants. So the party appears in front of the stalkers and acts as if they are lost. Realizing that they've been had, the men grab Matthias as a hostage and threaten the girls to do their bidding. Alma then asks what the men want to do with them, and the gang leader reveals that he's aware of Matthias being their team leader. He calls Matthias the weakest of the party and then informs the girls that they will be serving the lord of the town henceforth. Calmly, Matthias tells Iris not to use any weapons and knock them all out, and she takes them down like they're nothing. Matthias then attaches a demon-detecting tracking spell on the sprawled men since he suspects that they are in contact with demons. The next morning, at the inn, Matthias receives the king's letter, so he asks his crew to follow him outside. They meet up with Ake, the royal proxy of the king, at a spot where the town ruler won't catch on. Ake then reads the king's reply to Matthias' crew regarding Melchia's ruler's exploitation of the dungeon city, informing them that they've been ordered to take Lord Dokiel into custody. The party adheres to the king's wish, and Matthias tells Elk that he has already cast a tracking spell on Dokiel's underlings, and he knows where Dokiel is. Realizing that Dokiel is heavily guarded, Elk asks if he should call for the knight's assistance, but Matthias discourages him since he believes his party can handle the situation on its own. They get to the front of the estate and meet the gate closed with no one guarding it, which seems unusual, so Matthias uses magic to sense the signatures within the building. He sees that Dokiel has his men occupying the building as if they are lying in wait for an ambush, and Elk suggests they turn back, but Matthias disagrees, saying that they'll be going forward with their plans. They enter the house and get attacked by the minions, but Luri deflects them with a barrier. Matthias thanks her and zaps all the guards around them. The party then follows Matthias, who detects a secret passage that leads to the basement. On the other hand, Dokiel notices that everywhere has gone quiet, so he asks his attendant if the intruders have been crushed, but the informant disagrees, believing that they would have been informed if that were the case. Dokiel doesn't believe that his men could have been taken out that quickly, so he suggests they take the secret passage to the surface to check what's happening. To his surprise, Matthias walks in and reveals he's the one who handled the guards. He then calls for his party members, and seeing that Matthias is far from their reach, Dokiel summons more men to jump Matthias, but Matthias surprises them with a reverse. With the men taken care of, Elk arrests Dokiel and promises to take him to the capital for interrogation. When asked his next objective, Matthias says he wants to find out how Dokiel anticipated their raid. He sees a burnt letter and notices it has faint demon traces, so he concludes that the demons are after the dragon vein in the dungeon since it is far bigger than the one in the capital, which means that if infused with enough magic, it can cause a worldwide calamity. Suddenly, a loud earthquake interrupts them, and Matthias tells them that the demons have started tampering with the dragon vein. They immediately sense that the demons have spawned a monster horde heading their way. Quickly, Matthias takes his party into the dungeon to save Melchia by getting rid of the demons tampering with the dragon vein. On getting there, Matthias concludes that it's filled with traps, so he shows Iris a spot, asking her to dig through it to open up a shortcut to the dragon vein. She does as she's told, and they successfully reach the dragon vein. On getting there, Luri notices the demonic air around them, and Matthias tells her it is the demon's handiwork. Worried, Lurie asks if they can stop the demon's operation, and Matthias comes up with a strategy that involves the party splitting into two. He plans to soul the demons on the upper floor while Lurie's team is to interfere with the demon's control over the dragon vein and restore it to normal. After Matthias leaves to slay some monsters, he communicates with Lurie and cautions her to be careful not to blow up the town. They continue with their plan until Matthias finally meets the demon manipulating the dragon vein. He suspects the demon to be using a communication spell also, so he taps into it and learns of the other party informing the demon about Matthias's team disrupting the dragon vein control. Matthias realizes that there's someone else controlling the demon before him, so he attacks the demon, and it repels his strike. He listens in again on the demon and its instructor and decides to use their formation against them. Firstly, he tells Lurie to prepare different magic circles, then he engages the demon in combat. The demons devise a plan that is best suited to fight the crest of failure by attacking from a long range, but Matthias evades the attacks, so they move on to the second stage, which is to use traps. As Matthias dodges the beams fired at him, he asks Lurie to activate one of the magic circles, and it disables the traps in the dungeon. Confused, the demon reports the incident to his instructor, but Matthias disrupts the communication by having Lurie activate the other magic circle. Matthias then attacks the demon, who erects a barrier to cancel out all the spells sent at it. But Matthias charges in with his sword and reveals that he has seen through the demon's spell. Terrified, the demon leaps away, and at that same time, they restore their lost communication. Matthias then suspects the instructor to be an old demon as it knows about his past life. The instructor then orders the demon to use Disfortune against Matthias, but Matthias dodges all of its attacks and defeats it in the process. He contacts Lurie and informs her of his victory, and also commends her for restoring the dragon vein because the monsters heading for Melkia are disappearing. Their next goal is to find the demon giving out orders, but when Matthias tries to track him, the demon speaks to him, revealing that he has tapped into their communication spell. He tests Matthias's skills and sees that he can't fool Matthias with a decoy. While communicating, Matthias notes the demon to be far above the others he's faced, so he declares that he'll face him, but the demon tells him to track it first. It then cuts off communication, and Matthias notes that he finally has someone worthwhile to face. Matthias returns to his party and informs them that he has a way to locate the instructor demon who tried to fool him earlier. He reveals a Magistone, which he claims to have used to record the caster's magic signature, and says he'll need a device from 1,000 years ago to trace the enemy through the Magistone and pinpoint his location. Surprised, the girls ask him to know more about the device, and Matthias nearly reveals to them that he created it 1,000 years ago. The device is currently located at the Redenia Alliance, and with the king's help, they can cross the border smoothly, so they head back to the capital to get His Majesty's permission. On getting to the capital, they go to the second academy and see that it's being rebuilt. The headmaster, Edward, meets with them and informs them that they are rebuilding the school to make the walls thicker and also erecting a barrier to withstand demon attacks. He says that classes are being held at the first academy, and the students help with the construction. Later, Matthias meets Edward and informs him of their progress so far. He also reveals the demon he's been trying to track and mentions that they'll need to cross Redenia's border to find him. Edward then assures Matthias that he'll make a recommendation and seek Redenia's guild's cooperation, as he believes the king would make it a top priority now that demons are involved. But he warns them that not all alliances are friendly. Matthias then offers to help with the construction of the school while they wait for their leave to travel. The headmaster appreciates him, but they all worry as soon as Iris suggests help. Outside the office, Matthias and Lurie make suggestions that'll make the building materials more efficient. But when Iris tries to help out by carrying a heavy metal beam, the brainless dragon trips and demolishes a part of the building in the process. Days later, the king permits them, and Edward hands them their border crossing permit. He gives them the king's voucher for the Redenia Alliance, and they head out. On their way to the border, Luria and Alma confess it's their first time leaving the Ice Kingdom, and they wonder what the Redenia Alliance is. The major problem they will face on their way is getting into the region where they need the tracking device. Matthias tells the girls that the surest way to be permitted is to increase their adventurer rank, and they'll need to be at least A ranked to enter the restricted region. On their way to the Alliance, Matthias informs them that they'll take the Guild Adventurers test, and if it takes too long, they'll use Iris' true form as a distraction to sneak into their destination. On getting to the Redenia Alliance, they go to the guild and meet a man who recognizes them and informs them that the King of Ice Kingdom had asked their guild for help, urging international cooperation now that the demons are growing more active. Matthias then requests to take the Ascension test so he can get to a rank as soon as possible. Normally, the party members are supposed to start from the G rank and take the test upwards, but with a few strings, they are allowed to skip to the A rank test. The test comprises a mock battle with a prearranged proctor who happens to be Giluaz, an S-rank adventurer who is addicted to battles. Matthias notices Giluaz has a high magical signature, high enough for him to be mistaken for a demon. Although no one has ever passed Giluaz's test, Matthias decides to take the test. Before the test starts, Giluis tells the girls that they have passed and they should go home, while he points to Matthias to fight him one-on-one. Since Giluis has already heard of Matthias as the famous hero of the Ice Kingdom, he curiously modifies the match to have a sparring session with Matthias. They go outside, and Giluis states that the match is over when one of them gets knocked out or gives up. Before the match begins, Giluis pulls out his sword and tells Matthias that he doesn't use magic. But after keenly observing Giluis, Matthias notices that Giluis uses a physique enhancement spell. The showdown commences, and as they clash, Matthias concludes that Giluis unconsciously uses magic without any idea. They go toe-to-toe, but Giluis calls out to Matthias for holding back. So Matthias leaps into the air and steps on a magic circle to propel himself forward and strike Giluis. Giluis effectively parries the attack and replicates Matthias's moves upon seeing it once. Matthias then notes that Giluis has much room to grow, so he sends him flying by using a ton of his strength to knock him off his feet. Giluis crashes into the wall and admits his loss. He then asks Matthias for tips to get stronger, and Matthias hands him a book on spell casting. Giluis tries to read it, but he only has 2 bronze cells left from all getting smashed and tossed around, so can't handle the info dump. Later, Giluis asks him why he isn't aiming for his rank, and Matthias reveals that he just needs a rank to be allowed into Illus Plains in the Folkia region. Upon hearing the familiar place being mentioned, Giluis tells them that he heard the atmosphere in the region has changed a lot lately, and checkpoints have also grown stricter too, with a lot of parties going missing on their way there. Later, Matthias' party leaves for the plains. They arrive at checkpoint, and after checking their documents, the guards hand them passes that would be valid for the main road. They pass through the gate, and the girls relax, thinking that they're out of trouble. But Matthias shows them the magical code inscribed in the passes. He tells them that the coding technology is the same as that of the demons, meaning that all of Folkia might be under the demons' control. Looking ahead, they see visitors who have come to finish them off before they get to the city. So Matthias decides they put bandits to sleep instead of taking them all out to prevent a commotion. He orders Luri and Alma to sneak up on the men while they are distracted and use a magic item to put them to sleep. He then casts a spell to create illusions of the girls so that they can go unnoticed. After, he calls the bandits' attention so they fire arrows and prepare to charge to attack. Unfortunately for them, Luri and Alma successfully creep behind them and activate the magical item, causing the enemies to fall asleep. After seeing the effect of the magic tool from afar, Matt and Iris check the men out, and they find Alma and Luri fast asleep. Witnessing the girls under the effect of the sleeping potion, Iris utilizes the chance to draw on Alma's face. When Matthias wakes them up, Luri apologizes for her slip-up, but she laughs at Alma's funny face. Matthias then tells them to check the effect range of the magical item in the future before using it. They arrive at Folkia and notice the entire place looks creepy. It has a feel of a demonic magical structure in the city, with over 30 faint signatures scattered all over. Matthias tells Luri that the reason the demons feel small is probably because they're concealing their presence. He informs them that Folkia is full of demons, and even if it's true that typical demons don't work in groups, Demidmons are different. Demidmons are a cheap knockoff from the demons that can't use any spells, but they work in groups and fight as a team. Matthias tells the girls that if the Demidmons are the ones in control of the city, then it's the most troublesome situation he can imagine. He takes them to a hidden passage, which leads to the heart of the city, and it is often exploited by the demons. As the party moves through the dungeon, Matthias' detection spell picks up a demon just ahead of them. He slips through the wall using magic and temporarily stupefies the demon with a spell to give them a chance to walk past it. At the city center, they notice the townsfolk walk around like zombies, so Matthias examines one of them and sees that a thought paralysis spell has been cast on the fellow. They investigate the source of the spell and see where a lot of people are lined up in front of a factory and being spellbound before being granted. Matthias tells them that they would all have to go inside to check the place out, so he casts a defense spell on the party members to nullify the thought paralysis. They then act like they're under a demonic spell, and they are allowed to go inside. In the factory, they realize that the demons have the townsfolk refining ore with far more advanced equipment on a larger scale of production. Matthias identifies the rock they're collecting to be Rankine magical ore, which can be used in explosives when they're refined, and he notes that a ton of them can blow up an entire kingdom. Normally, it would take decades to gather that amount, but it will be much shorter with the demonic factory. Matthias also wonders if there's a powerful demon with extensive knowledge of magical technology behind the whole process. Curious, Luri asks him what they should do, and Matthias tells them that the factory is too dangerous to be left standing, and the thought paralysis in the long run would harm the human brain, so they'll have to destroy the factory and hunt the demons. Later that night, the party prepares to take down the 32 Demidmons scattered around the city center. Matthias comes up with a plan to use the Demidmons' teamwork against them. To start things off, the party releases a strong magical signature in Area 51, so the Demidmons reveal their true form and rush there. They surround the area and do not notice the source of the signature. Suddenly, Iris shows up, and as they prepare to attack her, Matthias cuts them down from behind. The leader of the demons hears their screams from afar, but doesn't know what's happening. The party's plan involves using Iris as bait, and the rest of the party members take down the Demidemons one by one. After getting rid of 8 of them, Matthias notifies Luri and Alma of the others' arrival, so they throw Magistones infused with a mere explosion spell at the demons. It distracts them, and Matthias takes them out from behind. The Demidemons get suspicious after losing a lot of their comrades, so they use magic to scan for perpetrators and traps. Quickly, Matthias orders Luri and Alma to use the conceal magic to prevent them from being detected. When the demons don't detect any traps or intruders, they continue their search for Iris, but many of them get caught up in traps and are cut down in different parts of the city. Their leader finally notices something off, so he checks the body of one of the dead demons and picks up 2 magical signatures. He immediately concludes that someone is hiding and attacking them, so he informs the others. Matthias then changes plans by instructing the girls that they will have to take on the rest of the demons head-on. The leader of the demons strategizes with his kin and orders them to use some of the magic crystals to purge the city. While some demons try to talk him out of it, Geluis cuts down one of them. As Matthias runs to face the demons, he senses Geluis' signature and joins him in taking down the minions. Iris also joins the fun, leaving the demon boss as the last one standing. Geluis then fights him, but the demon proves to be a tougher opponent. He cuts Geluis severally, but Geluis avoids being fatally wounded. He then uses a recoil spell to cut the demon, but the effect recoils in his body. Still, Julius fights non-stop despite being at a disadvantage and eventually finishes off the demon. After the battle, he drops to the ground satisfied, despite being covered in wounds and his muscles screaming from the effects of the technique he used earlier. As Luri casts a healing spell on Geluis, the fallen demon gets up and charges to attack them, but Matthias parries his thrust. The instructor demon from the cave then speaks through the reanimated corpse, telling Matthias that he will soon destroy the seal and revive completely. After the message, the reanimated demon turns to dust, and Matthias tells the girls that someone was controlling it with a powerful spell. He has reason to believe that the spell was stronger than the body could take, and the only one capable of such a feat is the big boss controlling the demon in the Melkia dungeon. With no demons remaining in the town, the townsfolk gather around, so Geluis goes in to address them. He introduces himself and takes full control of Folkia under the Emergency Authorization Act. The party subtly expresses their worry of having Geluis in charge, but he shocks them by appointing someone else to do it in his stead. Later, Geluis hands Matthias' party a guild permit that allows them to enter Folkia's restricted area. Before leaving them, he tells them that he would have to go back to his training, as he cannot go around almost losing his worthless life every time he slays one measly demon. The party then continued their journey and found the device they were originally after. On getting there, the girls are astonished at the ancient structure, and Matthias nearly slips up by almost revealing that he was the one who built it in his previous life. He infuses the pyramid with magic, and it opens up, revealing a hole beneath it, so they all use an enhanced physique spell to descend into the hole. They walk up to the ancient device and Matthias tells them to check around for relics and treasures. As he prepares the device for activation, Luri finds a sword that Matthias created in his past life, and Alma finds a heavy spear, which Matthias reveals how dangerous it is. Iris, on the other hand, finds preserved foods, thinking they'd still be alright, but she opens them, and what she smells in there knocks her out cold. Matthias activates the device and puts a tool from Folkia's refinery to confirm if the instructor demon they are after matches the one in Melkia. The data from the magical analysis matches that of Melkia, so he uses the magical signature he acquired from the dungeon to ascertain the demon's location. Everything turns red when Matthias uses the machine, and he finds out that the seal is on the verge of being lifted. The girls ask Matthias if he's strong enough to put the seal back, and he informs them that Zardias is a demon they can't defeat in their current state. He tells the girls that they might have a chance of beating him if they use an immortality spell and train for 100 years, but that won't be enough to save all of humanity. As he brainstorms ways to stop Zardias, Matthias sees Iris with the ancient weapons, so he informs them that they might have a chance with such weapons. Matthias then picks up the sword to have the ancient device find relics matching its magical signature. Within seconds, the device points to the magic sword in Ice's capital. Quickly, Matthias and his party fly to Ys and on their way. Matthias gives Alma and Luri a Magistone each that he has designed to react to the magic sword in question. Suddenly, Zardias breaks the seal, and he immediately comes after them, so Matthias tells the girls to find the magic sword as fast as they can while he holds Zardias off. In the second academy, the students notice a strange magical signature and suspect that Matthias is coming. They look into the air and see Luri and Alma falling from the sky while they're tracing the sword to the castle's treasury. After landing, they take the shortest route to the castle. Meanwhile, Matthias lays an ambush for Zardias at the nearest town. He prepares to seal the fabric of space to weaken Zardias and buy time, but as Zardias opens the space, Matthias' attempt fails, so he is left with no choice but to fight Zardias head-on. Matthias tells Iris to fire one dragon's breath and pull back, as her presence alone should be enough to keep Zardias in check. Immediately as Zardias charges at them, she fires her breath at him, but he takes the attack head-on without suffering a single scratch. Zardias draws out his sword and launches his first attack at Iris, but she evades the attack with the help of Matthias' multi-layered defense. Zardias then attacks Matthias, and Matthias notes that the demon is moving extremely fast. At that same time, Luri and Alma get to the treasury and ask the guard to let them in, but he refuses. Instead, he calls for backup, and the girls prepare to break into the room. Fortunately, the king shows up and they explain the situation to him. He quickly grants them access, and they storm into the room looking for the treasure. As for Matthias, he faces several barrages of attacks from Zardias, and after parrying them, he suffers from mana depletion, so he makes up his mind to give up his life to win the battle. Luri and Alma continue their search for the sword, and Luri finds it inside a blue box. She senses an incredible magical power within it as soon as she opens the box. She picks it up, and they hurry towards Matthias. Zardias, on the other hand, tells Matthias that he's foolish for thinking he could buy time against him with such meager power. He fires a long-range attack over the entire capital, forcing Matthias to cast a defensive spell to protect the place. Zardias reveals that he's aware of Matthias' preparations inside the barrier to resist him, which is why he has demons already in the capital. So he asks Matthias what he would do. As the girls run out of the treasure room, they see Deshril spawned again, and with ease, they take him down. Ashril also appears and asks them to surrender their weapons. He reveals two of their classmates, whom he holds hostage and threatens to unalive them if the girls do not obey him. Meanwhile, Matthias senses the demonic signatures in the barrier and learns that Zardias reanimated the bodies and currently controls them to get rid of his comrades. Zardias fires another attack at the barrier again, and it overpowers the defensive spell Matthias put up. So Matthias chases after the attack and deflects it. Pissed by his attitude, Zardias tells Matthias to cast everything aside and show him what humanity's strongest has to offer. Meanwhile, the hostages try to convince the girl to continue without them, but Ashril tortures them, so the girls surrender their weapons. Having realized that there's no way to beat Zardias, Matthias concludes that he'll use the reincarnation spell and isekai himself. But as he's about to do it, he recalls the girls putting their trust in him, so he changes his mind and enchants his sword to continue fighting Zardias. As Ashril tries to pick up the weapons, new sets of students attack Ashril with chantless spells. Luri immediately frees the hostages while Alma fires her arrow at Ashril. The other students also initiate the demon counterattack tactics they train for and secure Ashril, giving the girls a chance to run off to Matthias. The aforementioned holds up well against Zardias until the girls show up with the ancient sword. Lucy quickly throws the weapon to him, and he turns to catch it, but Zardias stabs him through his back. They all watch in horror as Matthias falls cooked from the sky. But before he hits the ground, Luri calls his name with tears rolling down her cheeks. Immediately, the stone on his sword shines, and Matthias flies back up to fight Zardias. Jealous of the plot armor used against him, Zardias bellows at Matthias, but Matthias tells him he was woken up by his sword ability. They attack each other again, but Matthias outclasses Zardias. He explains to the confused demon that he is only able to move that fast by animating his body with magic. Shocked, Zardias questions Matthias' identity as he believes no human should be capable of using such skill, but Matthias calls himself the strongest sage with the weakest crest. He then finishes off the demon with one final attack, but before Zardias vanishes, he tells Matthias that he's not the only chaos demon in the world, and the next demon will surely destroy him. When it is all over, Luri pounces on Matthias out of concern, and he blushes hard. The rest of the party and the headmaster show up. He informs Matthias that they've handled the demon in the barrier and no casualties have been recorded. Matthias tells them they would have to repair the damage, and the party members agree to help. He then expels the magic power of the ancient sword, as it is a one-use magic sword. The next day, Matthias and his party members meet with the king and Luri, thanking his majesty for giving them access to the treasury the other day. The king tells them that there's no need for any thanks, as the kingdom was in peril and he was just doing his duty to save it. For the rewards for their deeds, the king grants them titles and lands. Since Matthias has no desire for a title, as he'd like to live his life as an adventurer, the king grants him the very sword that Luri took and also asks him to take anything he likes from the treasury. At the treasury, Matthias finds an adamantite alloy arrow that he created in his past life, which he also made a matching bow for at the time. He asks for the bow and learns that it was sold to the Isis Company. The Isis Company is the biggest shop in the area and is the major buyer of scrap metal from the palace. The party visits the company looking for the bow, but only to find out that it had been turned into a block of metal. Matthias then realizes that the people of the current era do not know how to use it, so he buys the blocks intending to separate the adamantite later. He then buys jewels for Iris after seeing her drooling over them, but Alma calls his attention to Luri, who happens to be gawking at the jewelry, so he also buys a chunk of crystal. On their way out, Edward meets with them and tells them that there's an emergency, and takes them to Guile, captain of the Knight's Order. Although Matthias has been briefed by the headmaster on his way, Guile tells him that he received a report of an attack 2 days ago near the border with their neighbor, the Sihil Empire. The attack was carried out by 300 of the puppets lying in front of him. Matthias analyzes it and notices that the magic circle is intricate, and the wood itself is no ordinary wood. He checks and finds out that the puppet is powered by human life energy, meaning it's stealing small amounts of life energy from many humans at once, and the only ones capable of such acts are demons. Guile then asks Matthias for his aid once again for humanity's sake, and Matthias accepts. Later that night, Matthias speaks to Luri privately and gives her a pendant made from the crystals he bought earlier. She thanks him and promises to treasure it. Days later, the party set out for the Sihil Empire, and on their way, Matthias recalls Zardias's last words and notes that there are still powerful demons out there. He believes the adventure is going to get more entertaining. The end. That's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. If you made it to the end, comment, "I love my stepsister," as proof. And also, if you're into anime recaps like this, check out the next video. Peace.